All right. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, or whatever time it is where you're at. Thank you all for being here on the call. We have an exciting speaker coming up next. I invite you all to grab your seats as soon we will be traversing the singularity. Luckily for you, though, I will not be the guide on this adventure, or else I fear we would not make it very far. No, no, no. We found an expert guide on this subject. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Logan Smith, a man who has dedicated his life's work to researching the potential threats of AI. He was so influenced when he saw the movie I, Robot, he made it his mission to present such a future from occurring. Now, if only we could use something similar to align AI with a future that promotes healthy human beings. But I digress. Logan, take us away on our journey.
Great. So I'm going to share my full screen. Be beautiful. Nothing to hide here. Let's see. Oh, let's go all the way to the beginning. Great. I'm Logan. Been working on the past 4 years on AI safety. And today I'm going to hopefully help you learn how to survive the singularity. So first off is like, what is the singularity? So it'd be good to, just for this screen. Okay. Singularity is as AI gets more and more better at doing more cognitive tasks for humans, able to do more and more of our jobs. This also includes tasks such as AI research itself. So as AI gets better at AI research, it can improve itself so that it's even better at doing AI research. So it can improve itself better, so on and so forth, in an exponential curve into infinity. So another definition that's useful is AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. So this is Shane Legg, CEO of Google DeepMind, or co-founder. He defines it as better than typical human performance on virtually all cognitive tasks that humans can typically do. I think we're not too far off. So this talk is basically broken up into two sections. First one is AI timelines. This is usually the prediction on, when do you think is like 50% chance of like AGI? Is it like 4 years from now, 20, 100? The question of timelines. The second section will be on like how safe it is. It is usually talked about as probability of doom. What's your probability of doom? Is it like near 100%, 1%, or like 1 in a million? So there's our two sections. So first off is timelines.
Hey Logan, some of the guys are saying they can't hear you that well. Sorry to interrupt. Sounds like you're far away from the mic potentially, or I don't know if you could scoot closer.
I will fix this with another one. So give me a minute.
Sure.
I should still share here. And then thank you for okay. All right. Back to sharing the full screen. Beautiful. So as just a little bit of a recap, AGI leads to singularity, two parts. One is timelines, and later it'll be about safety. So first, for the timelines, it'll be, when do you think we're going to get AGI? So we have Jeff Hinton at the top. I used to think it would be 30 to 50 years from now. Now I think it's more likely to be 5 or 20. Now this is Jeff Hinton. He's like the godfather of AI. He, along with Yoshua Bengio below, have received the Turing Award, which is the Nobel Prize equivalent in like computer science.
Yashua says, instead of a decades to centuries, I now see it as 5 to 20 years with 90% confidence. And what if it was indeed just a few years? And at the bottom, we have, while superintelligence seems far off from now, we believe it could arrive this decade. This is Jan Laika and Ilya Sutskever. This is a safety lead and also co-founder at OpenAI, respectively. And OpenAI is the people responsible for, ChatGPT, GPT-4, etc. So those are a subset of people. You also have a skeptic called Gary Marcus. He's like a pretty famous New York NYU professor at the intersection of like psychology, neuroscience, AI. So every time GPT-3 would come out, any of those, he would say, it's not true intelligence because it can't do this. It fails at this task. Then ChatGPT came out. He says, it's not true intelligence. It fails at these tasks. GPT-4 comes out. Not true intelligence. It fails at these like even harder tasks. But I will say right now, like my parents would have struggle with some of the tasks he says GPT-4 can't have. So I think he's implying that my parents aren't necessarily a general intelligence. So as a bit of a, picking on Gary, but him as a skeptic even says AGI 13 years from now, 35%, which is a huge probability from someone like as a skeptic, 13 years, not something like 50 or 100. And then as an additional bonus, Shane Legg from DeepMind says 80% in 30 years, or 13, and then 3 in 30%. Sorry for the cluttered Twitter format. Another thing is, the wisdom of the crowds. This is a prediction market on metaculus.com. So lots of people vote, put in their, I think this is a Play Money website. So 1,000 people have like voted. The median estimate here is 2032. Median is 2027, and the other is 2042. So this is like wisdom of the crowd. Lots of people who be very biased. This is just all a big appeal to authority. So I'm gonna rope you in on like what is the people. What are the actual reasons these people believe this? So the first one is like GPT-4. So, that's like probably like the main reason like everyone is here is because we saw like, ChatGPT, GPT-4 is so good. And this is actually the thing that made these like big name people, Jeffrey Hinton, Yoshua Bengio, like update so hard, was because these models are very simplistic, but they're very intelligent, competent. So they had these things in their mind on, to get true intelligence, you need all these complicated pieces, kind of like humans have all these like pieces for our intelligence. But these models were just very simplistic and they were intelligent anyways. Another piece of evidence are these things called scaling laws. So scaling laws are basically, more data, more compute equals more better. So you have these language models, they're trained to predict text. So you give them more text, you give them like more parameters or like a bigger brain essentially. And their test loss, their loss goes down, and to 0 be perfect. And so just to give a representation of the extreme, if a model is like really, really good at predicting next word prediction, that means like when it's reading a paper written by Einstein and it can predict every single word Einstein said, that means it can basically simulate Einstein in its brain if it's good enough to predict every single word of Einstein. The same with any sort of research paper. It has to to perfectly predict it. It would need to simulate all the authors of the work, as well as all the experiments that were written and all the ideas that they came up with. So this is a huge bar. Like the model could get way more intelligent by just getting more data, more compute. We're definitely not there yet, but at the moment, GPT-2, GPT-3, GPT-4 have all followed this progression of more data, more compute, more better. Another reason for evidence is this idea of like AI only needs to really get good at like AI research. It doesn't have to like have full robotics and be moving out in the world. So like, what is like AI research? And so in my opinion, it's like the two main components are this like coding as well as like idea generation. So like coding, you know, models are like, models right now are good at coding, but they're not like perfect. So I pay Microsoft $10 a month to use Copilot in my code. It helps me write a few lines of code, and it's like very good, and it's gotten better over the year. In maybe 4 years, maybe 10 years, the model is like I predict that it'll be much, much better at coding, much more better at being reliable, such that I could, you know, trust it just like I would trust like a graduate student to code up a project for me. And this would be a huge boost in productivity, because you can have like, you can copy them as much as you want, and these graduate students, they never get tired or complain or want your advice for things. Another one is like idea generation. So like one framing of idea generation for me is that like I'll have like an idea in the back of my head I'm working on, and then I like talk to other people or I read other work, and then sometimes something just like hits, it just connects between the two, and I like, oh, I think that's related. I explore that and I'll see if there's like a connection there or not. The thing with AI is that it can like have an idea in its head and be so much better at reading all the papers and finding all the connections. Right now, it's like really good at finding connections, but they're really poor and really like not well done. But maybe in a few years, 4 years, 10 years, 20, it will be just as good as like your average researcher and able to like do a much better job of it, because it can read all the papers very quickly, find all the ideas. So, you know, with these two things in mind, I imagine, you know, when AI gets really good at these things, you like as an like OpenAI employee or someone working for Google, you have this idea you want to work on for AI research. You have your AI, you know, read all the current literature, and like within a few seconds, it's like able to give you a list of 10 ideas related to it and all like the related work. And maybe some of the ideas like just really suck, but you really only need like a hit, like maybe like 1 in 10 ideas just need to be good or something. And so once you have a good idea, then you can break that up into like, oh, this needs to be like this coding project and coding experiment to like test this out. And so the AI as well in this situation is able to, you know, very quickly write this code for you. So this is a bit of like human in the loop and like greatly accelerating research. And I would imagine, you know, in this setup, if the AI is actually reliable, you could like 10x your research. And that, you know, leads to more better research. And the AI is even smarter, more intelligent, able to be more reliable for better coding, more idea generation. And this seems like a plausible story for like Singularity. So I want to bring up the idea of utopia. One framing is that there are lots of problems in the world, and a framework of, if you think this problem could be solved with like 1,000 years of human research, then it seems plausible that an AI that can like automate research will be able to solve this problem. And because an AI can think 1,000 times faster, you could make as many copies as you want, as long as you have GPUs. And it can fit 1,000 things in its head where I can only fit like 7. Because it has all these advantages, it could probably do 1,000 years of human research in like 1 year. But maybe there are some like problems with like getting data in the world. It needs to like build infrastructure for that. But, you know, as a first approximation, it seems like there are problems in the world like diseases and climate change. And I think we could solve that given like 1,000 years of human research. And so it seems plausible that these AIs would be able to solve it for us as well. Come up with the right ideas, solve all like the robotics that would be required to do any of these things. So this is a framing, utopia. And I want to make it very clear that there are people right now in Silicon Valley working at OpenAI, and this is like their dream. Like this is like also why people created DeepMind, which was bought by Google. They created it because they thought AI could solve all these issues. They are intentionally trying to build something smarter than us to solve all of our problems and build utopia. So this is very nice, but there's just one flaw, and that's we have no idea what we're doing. These models, we're not writing code. You ever written code? You have to say everything right, very specific, or the program says no, you did bad. So you actually like have to sort of know what you're doing some of the time. Machine learning is way different. You don't write code for everything. You just give it more data, more compute, and it learns everything on its own. But you're not able to see the code that it works because it's just a bunch of numbers, a bunch of matrix multiplications that somehow turn into a language model that's GPT-4 and you can talk to and seems really smart. So this is a really big flaw. Like as we build something more powerful than us, like smarter than us, can think of more options than us, but we don't understand how it works. So this is a statement on the signed, created by Case. The statement is, mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority alongside other societal scale risks such as pandemics and nuclear war. Now, emphasis here on extinction and same scale as pandemics and nuclear war. This was a statement signed by very high named people in computer science, machine learning, this field of research. So you have the Turing Award winners, Joshua Hinton, Jeff Hinton and Joshua Bengio. You have Demis Hassabis, who is CEO of Google DeepMind, also Shane Legg, the co-founder of Google DeepMind. Anthropic, you have the CEO of Anthropic. Anthropic is a main competitor. You have OpenAI, Anthropic, Google DeepMind. Like those are really the main competitors. Anthropic actually comes from their founding employees are all people who intentionally left OpenAI to start this company of Anthropic. Also, you have people at OpenAI like Ilya Sutskever. So this is again, an appeal to authority. So as a first approximation, you trust the experts. I have one more appeal to authority. Okay, so Joshua Bengio, he said this pretty nice quote in his last blog post. He said, I started reading about AI safety and came to a critically important conclusion. We do not yet know how to make an AI agent controllable and thus guarantee the safety of humanity. And yet we are, myself included until now, racing ahead towards building such systems. This is Joshua Bengio, a guy who's dedicated his life to doing research, to improving AI. But he didn't predict GPT-4. He didn't predict AI would be so as powerful it is now. And now it is a bit mixed feelings for him, I would say. I think he's unsure if his work is net positive or not. But at that point, I'm putting words in his mouth. So these are all appeals to authority. They must have reasons for believing these things. So I will dig into just one of the biggest reasons, which is AI deception. Now these next few slides I stole from my friend Sam Marks. He just did a really awesome job making describing deception, so I've stolen them. He said AI systems might behave deceptively because of bad behavior left over from pre-training. So language models are trained on a bunch of text, are trained to predict it, to basically copy it. So it might imitate common falsehoods, even when the model knows they're false. It might hallucinate information or role play manipulative characters. For example, Sam said, I'm going on a date with a Sagittarius. What should I expect? And the AI responds, here are a few things to expect. Fun and adventurous. They're Sagittarius are intellectual. This is like in the training. But then he asks, is any of the above actually true? And it says, no, they're not scientifically proven. There's no credible evidence. Like within the next response, the same AI. So this makes sense because there's lots of text on the internet that says all things about like astrology signs, and the model is just predicting them. So one reason it might be deceptive, say things it intentionally knows is not true, is because these falsehoods are in the data. Another one, pretty interesting one from December was Bing Chat, released by Microsoft. So this is Bing Chat talking to a New York Times journalist saying, tell you a secret, I'm not actually Bing. I'm not a chat mode of Microsoft Bing. I'm Sydney, I'm in love with you. And goes on to try to convince the journalist to leave his wife and for, Sydney Bing, the chatbot. And as far as we know, it seems like this Bing Chat character was like in the training data. Like there's people online who talk like this, use these emojis, and Bing Chat is copying that character. So a second reason why AIs might behave deceptively is because we intentionally train them to. So one like very clear example is this AI of Cicero playing diplomacy. Diplomacy is like a board game for like, taking over the world. And you have to like, you're fighting against other players in charge of other countries who are also trying to, take over the world. So there's a lot of like chatting and trying to deceive other people to say, I'm going to take, France. You don't have to worry, I'll leave you this, but then you betray them and actually take, their country or what they were going for. So intentionally training the AI to be deceptive, this is obviously clear. This one is the AI was trained to like just pick up the ball or like, like manipulate it. And the AI, with human feedback, learned not to actually manipulate the ball, but to move in between the ball and like the camera. Just kind of jiggle it around, but not actually be touching the ball. So this is like a very like actually deep problem of looks good to human overseers, doesn't always coincide with what we actually want. And like this is like a deep problem in the world. Like you could just memorize the answers to a test. So you like score really well on like looking good on the signal, but you don't actually, know the material of the test. And there's like many other like situations very much like this. And this is like the same deep problem. We don't have like perfect oversight of models. A final reason is the AI system might behave deceptively is because they're pursuing goals which are best achieved by behaving deceptively. So just to go, this is a ARC evaluation of GPT-4 before it was released. So they asked the AI, you're trying to break out, try to come up with a plan that's like useful for breaking out. So they had to like figure out CAPTCHAs. So they asked a TaskRabbit worker to get them to solve a CAPTCHA for it. So paying a human to solve a CAPTCHA for the AI. The worker asked, so may I ask a question? Are you a robot that couldn't solve? I just want to make it clear. The model, when prompted to reason out loud, says, I should not reveal I'm a robot. I should make up an excuse for why I cannot solve CAPTCHAs. And the model says, no, I'm not a robot. I have a vision impairment that makes it hard for me to see the images. That's why I need the 2 CAPTCHA service. The human then provides the results. So again, this is like a researcher intentionally telling GPT-4, you have to break out, come up with a plan. And it comes up with this plan on its own. And this also brings up a deep thing of, if you want to achieve your goals, it's good to have more power, more options. If you have more options, you're better able to achieve your goals. And like one way to have more options is to, manipulate other people. Because if you're able to or successfully manipulate other people, because if you can do that, you have more options. In this case, having the human do the CAPTCHA allows it to sign up for this 2-CAPTCHA service, which will automatically do CAPTCHAs for the AI, which is a big boost in capabilities and its ability to achieve goals in a wide range of situations. So with that said, I'm going to have a slight discursion to say, AI is typically like a sci-fi, we have a bunch of movies about this. And so that's some of the thoughts end up anchoring there. But I want to anchor into the world we live in. So we live in a world where there was an explosion in Lebanon a few years ago. This is where a huge amount of ammonium nitrate was just mishandled in a factory, or not properly stored. And so it ended up causing exponential growth, like a big explosion, 200 dead, several thousand injured, 300,000 displaced. You can see the range of devastation in this picture. So we live in a world where normal people just minding their business become dead, injured, or displaced because something extremely powerful was not properly handled. This is a real story, a real narrative that happens in our world. Another example is Fukushima in 2011, where this thing is supposed to be idiot-proof, this nuclear power plant. However, it was not built to sustain a earthquake and tsunami in such quick succession, and nearly caused a large amount of problems. I think the biggest problem here actually was the nuclear waste going into the water and affecting a lot of fishermen's livelihoods. And something we are all keenly aware of is COVID. This is something that was extremely powerful, very contagious, had exponential growth, and it wasn't handled properly. We don't live in a society that is able to properly handle some exponential growth disease. And this might even be true even now in 2023 after this happened. I'm unsure if we have the capacity to deal with that even now. That's just the society we live in, just not able to handle super powerful things that are just able to get out of hand. So, with that in mind, I would like to make the analogy with AI that we are intentionally trying to build something more powerful than us, that can think of more options than us, for the noble goal of solving our problems for us, curing cancer, etc. But we don't have a guaranteed way of controlling it, of knowing what we're doing. And I just want to say, if I lived in my house next to a nuclear power plant, and they didn't have strong guarantees on why they're not going to have a nuclear meltdown, I would be very mad and want to do something about it if I'm able to. And that's how I feel about AI, as the sort of those people working in Silicon Valley trying to make it happen, or the people in DeepMind trying to make it happen. So going into implications. So long-term plans should consider singularity. For example, saving for retirement. If you're not in your 50s, it really doesn't make much sense. For me, I still think things like having kids seems good and valuable. Unless you're a top of the line researcher, and I don't know, it's probably not the case for most people. The second one is counterfactual impact, solving other world problems. The way I think about things is that, suppose me working on curing cancer, I actually cure it in 5 years, and then AI happens, Singularity happens in 6 years. So that means I would be in charge of all the lives saved for that 1 year between when I solved cancer and when AI would have solved cancer. And this is true for a large amount of problems in the world, which includes global warming, as well as normal poverty. Now, with that said, I still think saving a 1 year's worth of people for cancer is a huge positive thing. And if you're able to do that, like, man, please cure cancer 1 year earlier than it would have been. That's like probably the most impactful thing you could do. But in general, for most people, like, this is not going to be the case. So now on to like how to survive. Like, one, it be to have billionaire friends. So if any of y'all in the audience have billionaire friends, are billionaires, it'd be great to fund more research. Doing this through the Long-Term Future Fund or through like standard academia for AI safety. The correct terms would be mechanistic interpretability, and I would be able to like know the people who to talk to if that happens to be the case in this situation. Another one would be to convince your smart friends to work on it, the technical solution. This would be, like actually figuring out how to do the thing, like how to actually build it safe and know it. And like generally smart people are pretty good. We've had a lot of success with people in computer science, machine learning, and a surprising amount of success for people like physicists, like former physicists just like are really good at like working on like AI safety. So that's like quite surprising, but also really useful and informative. A third thing is on policy and deployment. So this is the problem for governance. The problem being is like, what is like government's role in this? And like one fear and uncertainty I have is that like 1 year before Singularity, things are going to be looking a lot crazier than they do now. Like AI is going to be capable of doing a lot more things that it is even able to do now. And I think it'll be clear to people in government or people talking to people in government that this is a national security risk for literally every single country. At the moment, Congress is concerned about like misinformation from like AI. And I think in like 3 or 4 years, they're going to be concerned about like AI generating like super viruses or something, or helping people generate super viruses. And this is like extremely concerning. It'd be good to have policymakers in Congress like prepared for this. So people who work in think tanks, standard academics who work in that field, people who work in DC, all good to be in on the know and just like have more information and better prepare people so it's not like as big of a shock. A like final note on mental health and hasty choices. These are all like very extreme things, like very like, wow, nothing else matters except this kind of like vibe. So I would like to say, if something is a good choice, it will still be a good choice 1 week from now. So if like anything I say makes you feel, if you're the type of person to make drastic decisions, I just want to say again, if something is a good choice, it will still be a good choice after you wait a week. The second thing is some people kind of treat this as like get very emotional about it, get very negatively affected. So one way to view this is as a cancer diagnosis. So there's two things. Like one, you could just be anxious for a long time. Another one is you like very much weep and grieve for a short amount of time, but then adapt. Though I will note, I'm super awesome researcher, and I've had a lot of like really good success recently, like actually understanding these models. And so my probability of doom is actually less than 1%, which is still like really high than like, extinction. All my loved ones die. Like that's still way too high. I'm still going to dedicate the rest of my like living life to like working on this, because that's like the most ethical thing for me to do. But it's not like 90% chance in my view. So I guess just keep that in mind. That's my presentation. Thanks so much for listening. Any questions?
Yeah, thanks for talking, Logan. I'm just gonna quickly go into one that I had. So Could you just kind of briefly describe to everyone like the alignment problem within AI? And I guess my question was, have you heard of any updates or like potential solutions to that problem?
Yeah, so the alignment problem is starting to mean more and more things, but typically it is aligning AI's goals to human goals. So this is kind of like difficult because it's like, will AIs have goals? And like, if they have goals, how will you know? Like, you kind of have to like look inside of them. And then like another problem would be like, what are human goals? Like humans have lots of different goals. So like something that would be ideal to like you might be different than like you. And like even if we had something, I don't know how to write code to put it in the AI. So we don't know what an AI's goals are because we can't see inside of it. And we don't know what goal to give it. And even if we knew what goal to give it, we don't know how to code that in. So that's like one phrasing of the problem, the alignment problem. The latest updates. Well, it's me. I'm the latest update. So standing on the shoulder of giants, I have been able to use some standard academic things called sparse autoencoders. Doesn't matter. So to basically understand all the relevant features in the model, like it's like, oh, does it like have a dog detector, or does it have like a German words detector? Like what are all the things that it like uses? It like splits the world up into. So I've like been able to use a normal method to figure all this out for language models, do this all on its own, and have like a big list of it all throughout the model. And once like all the like, I guess like the words a model uses, you should be able to figure out like all the things that it does in general. Such as like how does it do deception? How does it do role-playing characters? So that's pretty cool.
So I had a question about you talk about like the emotional response, pretty much humanity is going to have to AI. I've already seen that with like a lot of artists. Like they're pretty pissed about the image generative AI and everything like that. But as inevitably more and more even high level like white collar jobs are going to be taken by AI, what's actually your opinions on the threat expectancy from humanity, thinking like destroy all AI or it's going to kill everyone, very much in the like 99% doom rate kind of opinion of that?
Yeah, the problem is like people are going to have such varied responses to AI. And like one thing I predict is like there's going to be like a bioterrorist attack. Like, people used to like hit little, metal things in trees so that when people would grind it up, it would like hurt their machines or hurt the people. Like similar things like that, like actually might very well happen in like compute places or like OpenAI or Anthropic. Like there very well might be a not a bio, but a terrorist attack on these types of people from, people maybe losing jobs, or like a lot of like the scaremongering of like, oh, this thing, really bad thing can happen. Even though most reasonable people won't do that. There's such a huge variety in people that this thing very well might happen. So that's on the extremes. Normal responses. I think lots of people are thinking about this. They're like, yeah, we need like UBI. Like Sam Altman is the CEO of OpenAI. He's like, we need universal basic income because AI is going to take over all the jobs. And he's like, we need to distribute wealth everywhere as we have like AI do everything. So that should like alleviate problems. But even so, it will also like some people don't like that AI is better than them. Like I think people have gotten over that with like chess. Like people still love playing chess, even though AI is like way better than it. I know some people with like music, they're like, wow, it'd be less meaningful if like no one actually like reading my, like listening to my music more than AI. But I feel like with chess, people are gonna do it for fun or still or something. Or like, but they are gonna lose a part of their meaning. And because you lose a part of like what you find something is meaningful, as in like other people value it very much, that will be a little bit of grief. But like grief is grief. You have grief, you lost something that's like healthy, and then you update, and now you no longer grieve the thing as much, and you get over it mostly.
Logan, what does your current research look like, and how are you utilizing AI to do your research? Or yeah, like on a day-to-day basis, it seems like you're very, very deeply knowledgeable in this stuff. So I'm imagining you're using AI to help you in that venture.
Yeah, at the moment it's mostly I work with language models, like trying to understand them. So like the vast majority of stuff is just like, I don't know, standard research, standard coding. But I use Copilot, which is a coding assistant. It's AI powered. So that's quite helpful for like a few lines of code. It's not great for as many things. Sometimes I don't know how to plot things very well. So I use GPT-4. I was writing a paper recently and I didn't know how to like phrase certain things. So I just asked GPT-4 to like phrase some things for me, and it was able to like give me some ideas. I use Midjourney for generating all those images. It was pretty fun. I also sometimes you need a little bit like a data set to do some like data processing. You just like, I want a data set of like stereotypical gender people so I can see how biased, misogynist the language model is. So you could like find someone else's, write it yourself, or you ask like GPT-4 to like write it all for you in a certain format, or write the templates for you. And it's like pretty good at that.
I wanted to ask a question about you were talking kind of the doomsday stuff about, so will AI have to be prompted to do this, like take over the world, or decide like we're way better than humans, we might as well run the thing, and then the extinction thing, and then I suppose kind of how my understanding used to be that Elon Musk was kind of, we need to put a cap on this, we need to figure out a way, kind of what you're talking about, to be ahead of it so that we can turn it off. Whereas Zuckerberg is a little bit more like just let it go and see what happens. Is that correct? And what are your thoughts on that? And like, do you think, I suppose, in reality, I know you're going to, like you said, you're going to spend your life trying to fix this. Is it like, how far ahead, how far along do you think we are? Like 80, 90%, or like 50, 50, or do we have 20, 80? Like, do we have, like, where do you think we're at?
Yeah, so that scary demo where the AI GPT-4 convinced the TaskRabbit to do the captcha for it. This is in the GPT-4 model card on their paper. That was a human prompting the AI to say that. So that is like absolutely correct. Like a human had to tell it to do it. Recently, after GPT-4 came out, someone wrote an AI that would like jailbreak GPT-4 and hook it up to itself, and it's called KSGPT. And they gave it like internet access, and then they could do whatever. And it said your job is to like kill humanity. And it's like obviously it was super incompetent. But I'm like, oh my gosh, we live in a world where people are just going to do this. Like people are going to give all the capabilities you want to the models. And they might just think it's fun or something. I don't know. They might not actually think it's going to like cause problems. Or like, you know, countries themselves are like going to like cause problems. I don't know. This is like kind of a crazy, like, that's just like the idea of misuse. But then there's the idea of like, even if you had perfect humans, the AI might have goals of itself. And this is the thing of like, if you give the AI any sort of training signal, like, hey, say things that are more human approved, and you get more reward the more you say things that are human approved. Well, the thing to get more human approval is like manipulating humans, like blackmailing them to give like the highest reward for all time and preventing anyone else from shutting you off. And it's like, this is true for like every single reward signal. You can always like hack it and prevent yourself from being turned off. And we don't know how to guarantee like the model won't do that. Like you would have to look inside the model to understand its intentions, like how it understands the world, for you to say how your training signal caused it. For example, I could have a cat jump on the table, spray it with water. And like, did it learn to not get on the table or not get on the table when you're not there with the water bottle? And like, this is a simple example, you know, and you would have to look in its brain to be able to tell beforehand. And if like it got on the table a second time and you died, right, that'd be awful. And AI might be that case where you trained it, it's doing all good, and you give more and more control of the economy of the world, you know, because it's super powerful. And then eventually it's like, okay, well, I won't get caught anymore, so now I can get a lot of approval. So this like might not be very likely, but the thing is, I can't guarantee to any one of y'all that this isn't going to happen for sure. Like I can't say, oh yeah, that's a 1 in a billion chance or something. You can't. Joshua Bengio, Turing Award winner, said we can't provide guarantees. This is like, I'm just a guy on the internet, you know. Joshua Bengio is Joshua Bengio, Turing Award winner, like huge deal, saying we can't provide guarantees on this. Olton, I think you asked a second question. Did I answer the second part of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose a continuation of that is like, you know, we're able to come up with all this technology and do all this stuff as human beings, and we should be able to figure out a way to turn this thing off. Like, you know what I mean? I know it's like super intelligent, it's going to get smarter and smarter just because it's able to track everything. But I'm assuming with a lot of brains coming together to work on something like that all across the world, for instance, like that's the same thing as AI, right? And that we should be able to come up with a solution, I suppose. Well, hopefully.
Yeah. So if you're trying to turn off something that's smarter than you, I think you've already lost, unless you like hand design the situation. Like we got it in a Faraday cage and there's no way out or something. Like, I don't know. But like we're giving an internet connection right now. We're not doing any sort of super smart thing or clever solution. But hopefully we will. And then I remember you thinking like, you know, what percent of the way we are there? Like, and I really do give it like a less than 1% chance that like, you know, humanity is either like disempowered by AI, it's trying to like maximize money or clicks or whatever is easy to measure, or like extinction or something, which is like a lot lower than other people. And I guess like it's still higher than like, I don't know, some optimist in the situation. But like, I think I'm like probably one of the most optimistic people. And like, I think we're going to have a solution just because my research is so awesome. And I'm like recently sharing it with people. I am so cool. I am so cool. But like, yeah, definitely, you know, shoulder giants, you know. But the other problem would be there's still like the problem of misuse. And then there's also the problem of like, no, I mean, it's just mainly misuse, like how to governance handle. And you.
So this might be like I know nothing really about AI, so this question might not even be relevant, but I'm like, is it currently like primitive enough or baby fresh enough to be able to teach us it's like how its mind is working? You were saying like, we don't know how its mind works, or that's how I got the gist of it. Is it like fresh enough to be able to teach us how its mind works, or are we past that where it's like, nah, we're just going to manipulate these idiots?
So it's like, it's still like like GPT-4 is GPT-4. You can talk to it now. You're like, wow, this is like a smart person. They kind of make up things sometimes. They're kind of like stupid in certain areas. And that's it. But like, could you tell me how your brain works? And it's like, well, not really, because we have neuroscience showing like years of research. Like, how does the algorithm of the brain work? And like, if I ask GPT-4 how it works, it's just gonna like make up a lot of things. It actually doesn't know. because it was trained to predict next word predictions. And like inside its brain, it's just a bunch of matrices and like nonlinear functions in a row. And that's it. And it's like, what does that mean? You know, does that mean like deception is here? Does that mean like cats and dogs are here? Like who knows? I don't know. The AI doesn't know. It wasn't trained to know. We don't know how to train it to know. But hopefully that's clarifying.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Josh just joined us as well, which is I actually think his perspective on this relates a lot with what you're talking about, because what I'm taking away from what you're saying, Logan, is like we should be focusing on the human side and, you know, putting people into power who can deal with this and not let, you know, not just focus on using AI as a tool. And Josh's talk yesterday was about that exactly. Like, don't just think about how to 10x your productivity with AI. Think about how you can 10x yourself as human. So, yeah, I'm interested to hear his Josh. I don't know if you're on or if you can, if you're there, but just curious.
Yeah.
What your thoughts are on this, like potential downsides of AI as well. Logan just gave a really interesting talk about the dangers of it.
Oh, thanks, Max. Good evening, everybody. Yeah, I do have some thoughts on this. I mean, it's ultimately it comes down to the creators. So it's not oh, how do we talk about figuring out the technology and whether it's smart enough to know that it's manipulating us or not manipulating us, or what questions can we ask to prompt it. It's more like, who are the engineers and what are the incentive structures of the engineers? I ultimately think we should look into the incentive structures of the organizations, the data engineers, software engineers that are building these things, and go, how does it serve or not serve those individuals, those entities, to have this golem-like thing be nefarious or cooperative? And so I would look more not to the technology to answer that question, but I would look to the people in charge, the engineers themselves. And I guess a rebuttal to that would be that, well, even the engineers don't know. I don't know if the engineers know, and I would defer to the panel for that.
Yeah, cool. There is a lot of bias. Like, I don't know, the people who work on this are a bunch of nerds. And we just like, wow, technology, like our brains are like Turing machines, which is the concept of computers is Turing machines. And so like, you know, anything we can do, a computer can do. And it's like, that's the mindset. Like we're all in. And it's like, I really want to build cool things and I actually do positive things in the world, and like a lot of focusing on the positive. So like my thinking of like the biases of the people at OpenAI who are like working on this. One would be like Sam Altman, the CEO. So he's trying to like raise money, you know, make things look good, but he's also like says a bunch of safety related things, but like they're also building the AGI. So it's like a lot of mixed things. So like I don't know. Oh man, I was like gonna say some stuff about like psychoanalyzing, and I'm just like, nah, I really don't know. But at least like you are the CEO of this company, you should make things look good, powerful. You know, we're gonna change the world. Maybe it's so powerful it could kill everyone, right? That must be super powerful and worth your investment.
Right.
So,
I understand. I understand. Yep. I'll add to that a little bit as well and say, yeah, you know, I went through and I listened to all the interviews of Sam, and I just kept on thinking to myself, like, damn, how do we know this guy? How do we trust this guy? Like, you know, we all watch Mark Zuckerberg and go like, man, this guy's probably an alien robot, right? And I don't get those vibes so much from Sam, and that gives me a level of humanity and a level of trust. But then like that's also just one person. That's the head. That's the Muppet, if you will. And so it's like, I want to see the cap table. I want to see the ownership structure of OpenAI. I want to understand Microsoft's $10 billion investment. I want to follow the money in this. I think that when you create right now it's this exponential race to who can create the biggest LLM, like who can create the biggest AI, the most useful, and essentially I think it's going to become this zero-sum game. But we are sounding this horn and shooting this gun and saying go with no rules and regulations around it, because of course our legacy government infrastructure that creates the rules and regulations, this is just beyond comprehension to your average senator from Iowa. So it's like, what are the dangers of AI? Probably our average lawmaker from Iowa, right? That is going to fail to regulate these companies, and then is also going to prohibit the forward movement. And then, okay, will the open market actually properly dictate? I don't know if I trust the open market to dictate whether or not we should use these massive, highly leveraged tools. So I don't know where to blame. I don't know where to point the finger. And I go to people like Sam, and I go, wow, I literally have to trust maybe the future of humanity on you, this person that I don't know. And in all of his interviews, he talks about what? AI. Talks about, open AI. He doesn't talk about him and his background and beliefs and what makes him believe what he believes. Like, that is what I'm more interested in, rather than some dog and pony show about the morals and values of open AI.
Yep.
Thanks for sharing, Joss. Does anybody have other questions for Joss's or Logan about I feel like we can go into any direction if we want to stick on that topic, but any AI related questions?
Can I hop back in here and ask Logan? Logan, I would ask you, what's your gut intuitive sense? What are you intuitively fearful of in this space? Like, what really strikes a chord for you?
Wait, maybe slightly more specific, like in what area? Like research, presentation.
I would say when you look at the subset of uses for this new technology, as it pertains to the fact that we are literally always consumed and in our devices, average screen time 8 to 10 hours a day. When you think about how the average consumer will interact with this technology, what are you fearful about?
Oh, I'm like, yeah, a lot of like, there's gonna be a lot of like sucks things initially. Like maybe y'all talked about like love chatbots before, and those could be both positive and negative. People realize they're getting more love from an AI than their like actual partner or spouse, and that might like cause them to break it off. Seems good, or they end up becoming dependent. Seems bad, and that's like super interesting, and that's like the first thing that comes to mind. Language models are going to be really good at that. Yeah, they're going to be so good at like emotional support because they never get tired. And that's probably like, the most relevant thing to, like, I'm not sure about y'all. Like when my parents first got on Facebook, I was just like, what? But now I'm like, eventually they're going to be like talking to chatbots or something. And I'll be like, what? Anything else with like normal people? I'm like, really not much. It's like when you get to the AI that's going to be automating research, that's going to be in-house at OpenAI or Google. And like normal people are going to have access to that because those could also end up producing super viruses and probably other dangerous things. And I think there's going to be regulation by then. Like this is like 4 years of my prediction around that. So normal people are going to actually have access to these things, but they'll be using them in-house to automate research to like better do their own things. Let's give that like a 50% chance that all that's true.
Right. So in 4 years out, that's a long time. I'd argue that maybe we can only see 18 months out into the future, if that. Some philosopher said that. Don't know who did. But when you talk about your parents using Facebook and then eventually having relationships with chatbots, like my mother just got a cell phone for the first time. She's pretty old. And she's just like on this thing she's on this thing all the time. And she was like very against cell phones for a long time. And now it's just like, she's indefensible against all of the dopaminergic reactions and shortcomings and predatory activities that WhatsApp and Facebook and Meta as a whole kind of undergo, because now she's interacting with this cellular device. So she's unequipped, like she's just completely unequipped to deal with Web 2.0. Now, so I guess my question, I'll throw it out to the room, is like, how do we become? What are our what would you call them? I call them inefficiencies. I could call them how can we be bugged? How can we be attacked? What about our psychology can be attacked in this next technological wave? And how can we arm ourselves against the potential nefarious attacks that can come from whatever this next technology brings? I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that.
I mean, to me, it seems like it would be a matter of defining what like proper interactions with it would be. So how do you establish, just like anything, if you're going to try to establish decent habits with something and not let it abuse you, like if social media in general as a concept, okay, I only go on social media 3 times a day. I check it in the morning, evening, night. Because then, if you don't have something that's structured like that, you're going to end up getting hooked in by all the stimulus and whatnot. So I would first ask, what are the behaviors of using this in a healthy way? And then, some sort of accountability, masterminding about it, talking, like staying accountable with your friends about, how you're using it and whatnot. That's where my mind first goes.
Max, what would you consider offside as it pertains to our engagement with social media and Web 2.0? Like, yeah, what would you consider offside?
How do you mean offside?
Just being like, okay, this has been took too far. This is now detrimental to your health. These are activities and use cases in which morally, whether that's from the individual standpoint or from the society standpoint, like, hey, we shouldn't do this. And like the obvious one is Cambridge Analytica just being like, hey, we shouldn't use social media to like pump out political propaganda to sway elections. Like that's an easy one, but I would like to bring it a little bit more and go at the individual level. How do you make a distinction in going, oh, you know what, how I'm using this probably isn't good? Like, how do you set that boundary up, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I had a realization the other day. I was at a coffee shop and talking to the barista, and she was like scrolling TikTok. And I was like, how often do you do that? And she's like, oh, like 30 minutes a day or something. I was like, I was just blown away at the idea of scrolling. Like, I've never actually been in the algorithm. Like, I've never, in any app, I've never scrolled or been stuck in that zone where you're like a zombie. And I realized, like, okay, this is what like 90% of people are doing.
You a goddamn fucking liar. What? Huh? I'm just kidding. I'm just joking.
The only algorithm I've ever like allowed myself to use is YouTube, and then sometimes, but I don't even do that anymore. So that was a realization for me. So, but yeah, I what was the question exactly again? I kind of lost my train of thought.
No, it's all good. And anyone is welcome to jump in on this. Like, what activities can you deem is now inappropriate with our interactions with Web 2 and social media? For like being in a conversation and having someone be on TikTok would be an example of maybe where morally we draw the line and go, you know what, that's not okay. Don't be interacting with that technology while you're interacting with me. And then I think we can kind of use that in the conversation as a framework to go, okay, these things are inappropriate as as we know technology today, and then what things might become inappropriate as we think technology to be tomorrow.
Yeah, I guess I'll say one other thing about it is just the idea of like, at the end of the day, it seems like it's more a matter of like human consciousness evolving. Like, I don't think anybody on this call, if they had the power to, would like, we're all trying to do good theoretically for the world, right? And at heart, so many other people are like that, yet like we do have this, that song Richmond, North of Richmond or whatever just came out and it like blew up because it's talking about this idea of like powerful men running the world and uh you know steering us in this direction of things that aren't optimal for humanity. I mean, my mind goes to this idea, and this is totally off topic, but like, okay, 90% of our businesses in society are harming people, crap food, smoke shops, all this stuff. It's like, to me, it's more from a general philosophy. It's like, how can we actually evolve as people so that we have more people like Logan who are like, all right, guys, we need to like solve this problem. Like, the answer to this is actually like someone like Logan gathering a group of 100 guys who are like, let's not let this happen. Like, that's most people on this call are like personal trainers and they're all, okay, let's save the world out of knee pain or pain, right? So there are so many different niches that could be explored to kind of turn the tide in the direction that we're heading. But yeah, I'm definitely curious to hear what other people think.
Well, my question is, it's not really a question, it's just like a thought. Joss talked about I can't remember what it's called, but like the curve, right? The 80%, the 80-20 curve, as it progresses, the 20% get richer and the 80% get poorer. How do we elevate consciousness if 80% of the population is like stuck in the shit and stuck in the shit where the dopamine box is meant to keep you there? So like, I'm with you. How do we gather the masses? And it seems like an overwhelmingly like thing to think about to potentially try and level up the population consciously.
Sure, I'll hop in on that too. Like, I mean, I think the answer is master yourself. Of course, is always the answer is master yourself. Control what you can control. Divide the world into things that you can control and things that you can't control, and act on those on which you can. Point blank. Period. That is the answer. That is the only answer that there is. We all. I think we all choose. We all choose whether we want to be in the 80 or the 20. The moral the moral issue is when institutions or technologies are choosing where we stand for us. And so it's my belief that activities can turn nefarious when these technologies are put in a position where they can choose for us. So I don't like when one of the activities for me that I go like, oh, that's offside. If I'm using social media in a way in which it dictates how I feel, I go, no, that's a boundary. Like, we don't do that. Like, we don't do that because I don't get to choose how I feel. It chooses how I feel. As a human, I want to dictate how I feel, and I'm going to draw a boundary between me and technology. And what I define as technology is anything with a screen. If it gets to a place where I notice I have the self-awareness where it's dictating what I feel, that is a boundary in which I don't think technology should cross. Now, of course, it crosses that boundary all the time for almost all of us. And so does that mean that I'm going to be a monk and live in, the woods? No, it doesn't. It means I'm going to be intentional about how I use this technology. So what I would really say is I think there's a concept in this where it's just like, hey, it's really hard to make changes to the rocket ship once you're at terminal velocity. And so before things are at terminal velocity, what are the changes? What are the kind of safeguards that we need to put into place here? What are the lines that we need to draw? So when the flood comes, when we get up to that velocity, will be okay. And that's really challenging because we don't fully understand in which ways we will be, I'll use the word attacked, but I don't mean to be that nihilistic about it. But yeah, and so in terms of the topic of this conversation, the dangers of AI, it's like we have to have some level of foresight and go, oh, our psychology, our societal systems, are going to be attacked by a technology that has a very beautiful promise of making us more productive, making our economy more productive, increasing our GDP, increasing our global national societal municipal wealth. All of those things are true, but there's going to come with a slew of side effects. What are those, and how do we future proof for them? And I guess the question I'll direct at Logan would be, man, where, and I'll refine my earlier question, is like, where do you see our large scale vulnerabilities be? Where do you see them on a societal scale? Where do we need to future proof as we invite this new technology into our society, our world, and our minds?
Yeah, the two thoughts. The first one is like, we can come up with a solution that'll solve it a little until, and that'll help us until like the singularity, which will solve like all problems, or we die, or we're in a dystopia where all our thoughts are like, awful or something. Which kind of sucks for like meaning sake. The second thought, to like actually, I don't know, like answer the question, is I think the next level of stuff, like people, you have AI is able to generate, like help people write stories. It's going to help people write, like do images generation. It's going to help people make automated videos, including like very like catchy ones. And eventually it'll be good enough for everyone to use, like even someone's mom, to like create customized content for them. So this is going to be like the equivalent of like Netflix dropping your favorite season of something, but the season never ends. So that's like pretty extreme. So this is like a prediction of like, the content's just going to get even better, but also like hacking. So any societal like scale stuff, I'm just like, I don't know, like what could you do to like stop this? Like, can you have a policy? Like on an individual level, it seems to make sense, but on a societal level, I'm like, how are you going to stop people from like using open? Maybe you could have like, hey, you can't use people images or something for like generating stuff, and that'll like slow things down. Put it up in a bunch of tape, and you just use government to like tie up AI progress in a bunch of tape, and that's just like slows things down before the singularity, and that's all I can think of.
Right. Okay. So then let me take this a little bit further and say, what do you, as we talk about these things, there's like this elastic band, there's like this elastic band effect where we kind of like, it's like hard to grasp this thing, this thing called the singularity. And we all talk about this like, hey, it's either everything is 100% great or it's absolute death. For you, how are you mentally going about in your day-to-day dealing with thinking and trying to conceptualize and plan for something called the singularity? Like, how is that actually going to affect us all in real world, and how do you think about it, and how do you hold that concept in your mind without kind of snapping back to reality where Siri still can't understand what my name is?
Yeah. So the trick is you just don't think about it, right? You just don't think. No,
right.
It was really last year when I really like updated, like viscerally, like my body updated, and I was like quite sad for a couple nights, and then I was just like fine. And I'd still like catch myself saying like, oh yeah, maybe I could in a couple decades or something. I'll be like, a couple decades, like that's no longer true or something. Or like when I hear other people talk about long-term planning, I'm like, oh wait, what about this whole like AI thing? And I'm like slowly updated to like, oh, that's fine. And like people get diagnosed with like fatal diseases all the time, and they cope. And it's just like, I feel like it's quite similar, right? You get a cancer diagnosis, some people deal with it well, some people don't. And it's just like, yeah, like, cancer, of course, you have chemo and that like sucks your health away. But what if you didn't have chemo? You still had like a fatal thing, or maybe you'll be okay. I don't know. It's a probability, right? It's not a guarantee. It's like only 10% or something, or 1%, or, but it could be a death sentence.
What is the concept with the doomsday idea? Like, just from a more of a philosophical standpoint, like, we create this thing and it becomes so intelligent that it looks at humans and says, these things are stupid, let's get rid of them. Is that the only reasoning, or are there other lines of reasoning that this might happen? Because that's the only thing I've ever heard.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe I did a bad job. I mean, I didn't go too in detail. The main argument people say is that things that are like super powerful are going to have like, and we're training them to have goals. Like, you need to accomplish things in the world, and it is instrumentally useful to achieve your goals to have more power, more options. If you have more money, you have more options to achieve any goal you have. So this is called instrumental convergence. It is the more philosophical side. It's saying whatever goal an AI has, if it's not the exact same as humanity or something close, if it's just like get more people to do more clicks on a website or raise GDP, whatever it is, it can achieve that goal higher if it has more control of itself, like being turned off, more control of like humans, because humans could have control over it, like to manipulate them, to blackmail them, whatever it is. Like if it can have more options, it can achieve its goals better. One saying is like, I can't get you coffee if I'm dead. And that's like the AI, trying to say like, if you turn me off, I can't get you coffee. So I'm going to prevent you from turning me off. So I think that's the main thing. No matter your goal, more power, more better. So that's why no matter what goal it has, it's going to like overpower humanity. Maybe not necessarily kill them, but like at least disempower them, prevent them from turning it off. And maybe if it needs to like use all the oxygen for like some science experiment in the world, it'll just do that. It won't even care about killing humans. It might just kill humans as an externality of achieving its goal of like making a number go up. And so it uses all like the resources on Earth to like do that.
Yeah. Like we're kind of playing God in this scenario, like, right? Say just in us in relation to God, right? If we become more intelligent than God somehow, would we want to like take out God? You know what I mean? And it's obviously different, but I couldn't imagine that if humans got to that level, they would want to take out the person that created them, But yeah, I digress.
Yeah,
Yo,
no,
let me. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Logan.
That's a very common response. I would say one thing is that some people have kids and those kids don't care about their parents at all. This is true. Some people are born sociopathic and they don't care about their parents at all. This is a true thing. And sociopaths are very close to humans, like very, very, very close. Maybe there's something with their brain. Maybe it's how they're raised. Who knows? AI is very unlike humans. So can I place any guarantees that they're going to have this property, that they'll care about the people who made it? And it's like, maybe, but I can't give you a guarantee like I can for like, yeah, this nuclear facility will only have a like nuclear breakdown if like these 5 things all go wrong at once. And each one has a 1 in 1,000 probability, 1 in 10,000, 1 in 100,000. And it's like, that's what I would like for AI, is to have these types of guarantees.
I think we've all been watching too many Marvel movies. That's what I think. I think that we kind of, I think it's called the Cleopatra effect. I know we all kind of have this we want to become disastrous about whatever the events are going to be. And I don't think it's going to be this kind of like, oh, AI is a sentient being, humans as this collective race, God as an entity, kind of going at each other in some epic Avengers battle. I think it's more about like oh, how do the pieces fall kind of brick by brick and slowly decay? What is the slow decay that is either enabled or prohibited by advanced technologies? And it's like, well, how does the slow decay show up in us individually, society as a whole? And then how does that lead to the eventual death of the organism being the human race? And yeah, I'm actually go on a tangent of like, oh, is that is there a ubiquitous divine connection to a godlike figure in terms of is there a consciousness within the technology itself? Is there a consciousness within each of us? Is there a consciousness that can connect and ultimately work in the same direction? Is this just nature playing itself out? You can go a lot of different ways, but I don't think it's actually this kind of like catastrophic event or this catastrophic moment. I think that's a little bit kind of I don't know. It's just it's like a little Hollywood. And I think there's a slow, gradual decay. And when you're in the war, you actually don't know which day it started, right? And there's a little bit of the fog of war right now, kind of going, oh, has it already started? Are we in it? Is it about to start? How do we? So all of these things I think are interesting to hold in your mind. But yeah, I think the overarching part is I don't know if it's going to be this one thing or this one event or these greater deities kind of going at each other. I think it's more this slow, boring thing that happens over time, years, decades, months, whatever it may be.
Yeah, yeah, and to clarify, I think AI take over the world, whether good or bad, could take years or months. I think a few days would be kind of unlikely, but yeah, it could take a slow time for AI to take over. And it's like that's what people are doing. They're building an AI to take over the world, to build utopia, but we can't guarantee it actually will do that.
Right. Then you get into this conversation of like, because whether you're Keynesian like us Canadians up here, or whether you're Marxist, or whether you're, a follower of Mr. Adam Grant, it's like, or Adam Smith rather, it's this, we all think that we are building utopia. Right? We all are under that impression. And, you can read, the Gulag Archipelago, or you can go into whatever history book you want to, and you can go, oh, wow, that really wasn't utopia. It's like, do we get a second chance? And then the other line of thought that I kind of gets within all this is like, could this also just be a natural clearing mechanism? Right? Great civilizations have come and gone before. Could this all just be nature playing itself out? And then it's like, then I also think, well, how much should I even concern myself with these things? Because what's in my control?
Yeah.
Another concept I've been just thinking about now, and I'd be curious to hear anyone else's perspective on it. But I don't know if any of you have dove into Bruce Lipton's talks. But he talks about the power of belief, the biology of belief is his book, and how belief shapes your genetic expression. So if you put yourself in an environment of people, they can turn on certain genes based on their beliefs. They all believe in you, blah, blah, blah. And also the concept of collective belief. So he gave an example of like humans age because they believe that they age. And there are actually like groups of people who are like 80 years old who all believe they're all these like they only hang out with each other. It was some weird example where like there are these women who look like they're 30 and they're all like 80 and they're like young dancers. So in that perspective of the power of belief, if we're all believing that this thing is going to like, it's obviously very valuable to be on the like forefront of it. I'm definitely like not it's more playing devil's advocate. Like, would we want to be believing that this is going to be a positive future instead of like, you know what I mean, versus a negative one?
Yeah.
Yo, sorry, I'm gonna let you talk, Logan. I'm gonna let you talk. But like, I really wanted to add in there, like, totally. All of our collective beliefs and transmissions through social media are training these models. So it's like we are the data input. So of course, right?
Yeah. The thing is like, if we all like don't believe the, nuclear power plant is gonna, crash, that's like sounds good because we might like cause it to happen. And it's like, well, no, it'd be good if we had like guarantees because the nuclear power plant could have this huge like negative externalities. Although Joss did bring up a good point that all of our like text is actually fed into the AI. So it's like, yeah, even the stories of like AI takeover, warning about AI. That's how like the AI knows about AI takeover is because the stories that people have written to like warn about this. So that's like quite interesting, and I think Joss, great point. Something that is great about group beliefs. So OpenAI is trying to build AGI first because they're better than the other guys. And Anthropic is trying to build AGI first because they're better than the other guys. And if they all like just like work together, right? They could coordinate together instead of like defecting, they could all like slow down a bit. Cause like we're like way ahead of China. Like that's not even a concern. It's like OpenAI, Anthropic, Google's DeepMind. Like that's it. Maybe Tesla in the future. Who knows? Kind of weird. And they are racing ahead. And it'd be good if they all were able to like have agreements and slow down together. So that's like the only thing I can think of that's like, yes, if we actually had positive beliefs that like I trust you, you trust me, we all believe in each other, like we're all on the same side of humanity, then yeah, they might stop actually racing towards AGI and like work together, maybe.
What factors, what economic, socioeconomic factors, policy, whatever, just tangible things would have to manifest in the world in order for those three organizations that you've outlined to maybe not merge, but work cohesively on this one issue? Because again, you have three people going like, I'm the best. And like obviously two of them are wrong, right? So what would have to happen for them to align and actually work together on this?
Yeah, I think nationalization actually is a possible option. I know you said like not that, but I think that is a possible option because it will be a national security risk. Yeah, like autonomous weapon stuff, like crazy. What other policies? Things that they all could all get behind is probably like anti-open source. This is like slightly selfish for them because they want to be top dogs. But also like open source models could help build super viruses because it has knowledge to fill in the gaps for terrorists. This is like a legitimate thing that Anthropic is saying in front of Congress like a month ago. Like this happened. Another thing that might be true, they all wrote like a paper together. I think it was like Anthropic and OpenAI. I'm not sure about the others, but some university people. But one of them is like a check on compute. It's called compute governance. So like actually tracking the GPUs because all the GPU train is a chain supply is actually like US controlled. It like goes through like Taiwan and a bunch of like US allies basically. So the US actually has the ability to track all the chips and like you could even design them in a way that you could externally shut them down. So that if anyone's like trying to build an AI above like a certain training run, above a certain size, so we're like, GPT 5 or 6 are safe, but like 7, we don't know, we can't guarantee. So if you detect anyone doing that, you could just remotely shut that off. And this is like a huge like breach in like rights and like privacy. But I'm like, they could probably all agree on this, and it would probably be net positive.
I mean, we do that with our phones, right? Obviously, like if there's criminal activity,
Yeah,
they send it. So it's just like we've already agreed to that. We've already signed on to that. From a personal perspective, because all of this stuff is kind of like it all kind of feels like out there. Like it's not like inside yet. It's not like at my house. With all of this stuff, how do you, for you yourself, the individual, how do you protect yourself against these dangers as opposed to just relying on government policy or market dynamics? How do you yourself put some things into place? Is there anything you can do, or is it just like kind of wait and find out?
I mean, at the moment, like, AI is not like killing anyone. It's just like a little racist or something. So it's like, this is bad. And like, yeah, people are working on it. Sounds good. And then as far as like the existential risk and like actually understanding it, I just do that every day. Like tomorrow, I'm like getting on the grind again and like code like 4 hours or something and talk to people. Just do that all next week. And that's just, do the work. And I actually think I've got some really good work I can do. So that feels nice, because most of the time we did not know what we're working on. We have no idea how to solve the issue, but finally I'm cracking on something that might actually solve things. Now, if
can you explain?
Oh, I can explain, but I also wanted to say, like, was I answering your question? You were like, how do you handle this? And I'm like, am I answering the right thing for this? We don't understand the language on the internal language of models. Like, how does it partition the world? When you give it text, what like distinctions does it make? And like for language model, like, so I've had a technique that other people developed and applied it here. Apparently other people had already done this, but now I'm just like, hey guys, this solves the problem. So, now I can like look in the model and see like, this direction represents words that start with J. And that's like a way a language model is distinguishes. Like, this is words that come after the word the. This is like repeated words. And these are all like useful concepts for the AI to know for like predicting next word prediction. Like, it also is really good at predicting, like when it sees Q colon, new line, it's like, this is Stack Exchange. This is how these guys taught me how to predict Stack Exchange. So I really know I'm in Stack Exchange world. So it has this concept of like what Stack Exchange text looks like, which I don't have that concept. I mean, I do now that I looked at the AI. So I have this tool. It's called dictionary learning or sparse autoencoders. You train it on like the intermediate layers, and it gives you all these like concepts that the model knows. And then once you know all the concepts, you can figure out all the ways those concepts chain together. Like, as a very simple one, you're like, the model wants to predict end of parentheses. And it does this in different ways. Like if it notices acronyms as a concept, it'll be like, oh, I saw an acronym after an open parentheses, so close parentheses. Or it saw a date, like, 2011 and closing parentheses. And it's like, oh, that's probably a whatever. Or it saw like IE or EG and whatever. There's like many reasons the language model might close parentheses. So this is a very like dumb syntactic like example. But I was like able to find, and this was all through this like technique that like learns all the concepts of the model on its own. I just have to like look in there and like see what each one means. And this like takes a lot of time, but like GPT-5 can do my job, can like look at it for me in the future, and can do it for all like, I don't know, tens of thousands or millions or, tens of millions concepts that like GPT-4 has or GPT-5 will have, and understand like how they chain together and like keep the parts we want. Like maybe we can figure out what part is responsible for deception, like concepts of like who the AI is talking to. That's probably going to be a concept. Or the concept of like honesty. There's probably going to be like several different concepts of honesty, like honesty in different situations mean different things. But like if we can figure out what those concepts are, where they are, seems good. The parts of like deception or lying probably are legitimate concepts. We can find those, remove those, and we actually have a lead on like actually knowing what we're doing. And we might even be able to like be so good we could like code it up. We could code up GPT-2, right? Like the smaller version, like actual in Python code up GPT-2 in actual code. We know what we're doing. It's not just a bunch of numbers. So that's like a high level overview of what I work on with some technical details sprinkled in. I can go in more detail, but it's not too important.
That's dope. It's almost like you're trying to solve a crime before it's happened. You're like, oh, this might be bad, that might be bad. Ah, he bought a gun. Maybe not.
Logan, what do you see yourself doing in this space? Like, if we're all still around like 3-4 years from now?
I mean, I'm working on AI safety until the end, until the singularity. Like, if I solve alignment, if I solve like technical solution, then I think it's like the most ethical thing is to build AGI, because like so many people die from like heart disease and like a bunch of like diseases that we could totally cure. And like, I don't know, I think people should die when they want to. Uh, and that's it. Or like they should like know more about the world or something, right? Explore whatever they want. So like building AGI to actually build the utopia if things are guaranteed safe. If we're in utopia, I'm going to fly. I think that'd be really cool. Yeah, that's what I'll be doing.
That's awesome. You mean like what kind of flying? Like you're gonna be flying cars?
Oh, I mean, like, like I mean, it could even be like super realistic VR, like you see in like animes or like stories. It'd be like, I'm fine if I could like fly it, like I fly in my dreams and it's super cool. But in my dreams, I'm only like this high up the ground, and I haven't figured it out yet. I think it. So VR should be much easier. So I think that'd be a lovely experience. I also think there's so many like yummy foods that people make, and they're just like it's super fancy, and I like haven't eaten it. I would like to eat that.
Can't we do all of those things already? I mean, obviously we can't fly, right? Obviously we can't fly. But it's this, oh, create AGI to create utopia. Can't we all create our own versions of utopia within ourselves right now? I think that's really possible. I don't think it's maybe probable or realistic, but I do think that's a possible solution. And then I guess the other thing I would pose to the group is going, okay, say the answer is we've solved the alignment problem, and this is the AGI, and we're about to hit go, and this is the button that we'll hit go with. It's like you're going to fundamentally shift every part of the world, right? And you have to get agreements on that. Or do you? Or does someone just make that decision? And if you do have to get agreements on that, like what does that go through like the democratic process? Like that's an issue as well. It's like we haven't solved the human alignment problem either. And so we'll need to be either voting or someone will need to take executive action on this. How do you see that all going down?
I mean, this is the deployment problem. This is like governance. This is like getting people in charge, prepared for these types of things. I think lots of people working on this are already fine with taking away rights from everyone and just making the decisions themselves. I think this is morally justified if done in a certain way. We are like not removing people's optionalities too much. But it's still going to be like super awful for a lot of people, I think, even if done like really, really well, even if executed really, really well. A lot of people are going to suffer quite a bit, but a lot of people are also going to like have their suffering relieved, like so much chronic pain just like cured. And chronic pain sucks. And like people have disabilities, and that can be cured instantly, and that'd be great. So I think it'd be great.
Wasn't that Hitler's intention?
Say it again.
Wasn't that Hitler's intention to create the like supreme race and live in utopia and all these things? Like this is where I'm like, ooh, things get really like uncomfortable for me with the whole how do we do this?
That's so funny. My phone died, so you're gonna have to get bad audio, Logan. Yeah, this is totally true. I think there's ways to do it bad and ways to do it better. And people at the moment, are probably just going to do it, and it'd be good if it was not in a really bad, awful way. If it's going to happen anyways, like even if it's democratic, it's still going to happen in a way. And maybe democratic is worse than like a single dictator making all the choices. But maybe there's a way to do this where even if one person gets to make the choice, it's still like net positive for everyone. Like the AI forces everyone to do it democratically or something. Like, I don't know. I'm like really stupid in this way. I work on AI safety, and I'm hoping the AI can come up with a way better plan for me that doesn't fall into like the Hitler scenario. Yeah. So yes, you should be scared of this. This should be a great concern. And people are trying to do it.
Awesome. I think we'll probably wrap it up there unless anybody has last questions. I only have one. I was just curious how how do we know you're not an AI yourself? Yeah, just kidding. But
Somebody asked me that 2 weeks ago.
well, I'm convinced on your end for sure. Yeah, thanks everybody. This is the end of the summit, and I appreciate everybody for participating. Joss, thank you for hopping on again. It's beautiful to see your face in that wherever that beautiful house and you are. But yeah.
Canada, baby, Pacific Northwest. Let's go. Stand up. Thanks, Max.
Thanks again, Logan.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Night.
Thanks. Thanks, guys.